As we navigate life's path, our choices sharpen. We grow mindful of who we welcome into our lives and the spaces we call home. Over time, the desire for peace and authenticity replaces the need for endless social interaction. Connections matter. Neighbors, friends, and family shape our daily experience. They can bring light and joy, yet if they lack balance, they drain our spirit. The need for harmony becomes more than a preference, it's a necessity. With age, tranquility becomes priceless. Wisdom grows, and so does the urge to protect our well-being. Between 55 and 80, the company we keep becomes more significant. Those who nourish the soul are embraced, while others who disrupt the calm must be kept at arm's length. To foster a life filled with serenity, here's a guide to the types of neighbors best avoided, ensuring a future rich in peace and fulfillment. Part 1. 3 types of neighbors to avoid. Number 1. The intrusive gossip. Every neighborhood has its characters, but none are quite as disruptive as the relentless gossip. This isn't the friendly neighbor who enjoys a chat. It's someone driven by an insatiable need to uncover details better left private. They don't just ask how you're doing, they dig deeper. With prying eyes and persistent questions, they seek to know everything, from your family dynamics to your finances, even the smallest habits you thought went unnoticed. What sets them apart isn't curiosity alone. It's the compulsion to share, embellish, and spread whatever they gather. Whispers turn into tales, and soon the neighborhood hums with stories, many of which are exaggerated beyond recognition. Privacy, once assumed, becomes elusive when an intrusive gossip is near. The very sanctuary of home starts to feel compromised. Simple routines like gardening or taking out the trash seem like performances under scrutiny. You begin to wonder what tidbit will become tomorrow's headline in their ongoing narrative. The impact isn't immediate but cumulative. At first it's just mild annoyance. Over time, it morphs into unease, a nagging feeling that nothing is truly your own. Even casual conversations feel laced with risk, as if any word spoken might be twisted and carried beyond your ears. Protecting yourself from this kind of neighbor isn't about confrontation, it's about subtle strategy. The key is to remain polite yet impenetrable. Keep interactions brief, steering them towards safe, unremarkable topics. Weather updates, local events, or simple pleasantries are your allies. When the questions inevitably become too probing, don't feel pressured to respond. Offer vague answers or gently shift the conversation elsewhere. A warm smile paired with a quick excuse, like needing to check the oven or take an important call, can be your exit strategy. Physical boundaries reinforce the message. Consider subtle cues, closing the curtains, shortening your time outside when they're near, or politely declining unexpected visits. These quiet signals create a respectful distance without stirring unnecessary conflict. Avoiding an intrusive gossip while maintaining politeness is a delicate balancing act. Here are some practical strategies that can help. 1. Keep conversations brief and neutral. Stick to light topics like the weather, local events, or general pleasantries. Politely excuse yourself after a few minutes by saying you have something to attend to. Lovely chatting, but I need to get back to a project. This signals a boundary without seeming rude. 2. Control the flow of information. Share only what you're comfortable with and avoid revealing personal details. If they ask probing questions, respond with vague answers or light humor. Oh, nothing too exciting happening here. 3. Redirect the conversation. Shift the focus away from personal matters by asking about general or neutral subjects. Have you heard about the new park opening? Or, any good recipes you've tried lately? 4. Use polite deflection techniques. If they press for details, gently change the subject. I'm not sure about that, but did you see the game last night? This shows you're engaged but not willing to delve into personal matters. 5. Set boundaries with kindness. If they drop by unannounced, politely let them know it's not a good time. Sorry, I'm in the middle of something. Let's catch up another day. Consistency will teach them to respect your space. In time, most gossips lose interest when met with consistent deflection. They'll search for more willing participants, leaving you to enjoy the comfort of your home once more. The goal isn't to change them, it's to preserve your peace, ensuring that your life remains your own. Number 2. The self-serving neighbor. Among the many neighbors we encounter, there exists a particular type who views relationships through a lens of personal benefit. These individuals often project an outwardly warm and approachable demeanor, masking their true intentions. Beneath this pleasant exterior lies a consistent pattern, an expectation of favors and support, rarely reciprocated. Their friendliness may initially seem genuine, creating a false sense of trust and camaraderie. Over time, however, the underlying motive gradually surfaces, an insatiable appetite for assistance without any hint of return. It becomes clear that every interaction is framed by what they can gain, leaving a one-sided dynamic that erodes the foundation of a healthy neighborly relationship. Engaging with such neighbors can silently drain our emotional and physical resources. Constantly extending support only to receive nothing in return creates a cycle of fatigue and resentment. The act of giving, when done freely and mutually, enriches relationships. But when that generosity is taken for granted, it becomes a source of stress. This burden is magnified for older adults already navigating their own responsibilities and daily challenges. The continuous demand for attention and assistance can transform what should be a harmonious relationship into a source of overwhelming pressure. Even small requests, when constant and unbalanced, accumulate to create a significant emotional load. Over time, the act of giving ceases to be a choice and becomes an expectation, leaving us feeling undervalued and depleted. To navigate these interactions effectively, we must adopt a philosophy rooted in fairness and self-respect. Setting clear, firm boundaries ensures that our generosity is not exploited. It involves recognizing our own limits and acknowledging that we are not obligated to meet every demand placed upon us. Managing expectations is crucial. Vague promises or overcommitment only feed the self-serving neighbor's appetite. Assertiveness becomes our shield, protecting our well-being without compromising our kindness. It's about finding the balance between being neighborly and being taken advantage of, ensuring that our good nature is not mistaken for weakness. Refusing unreasonable requests does not require lengthy explanations or apologies. A simple, polite response can communicate our limits without inviting negotiation or guilt. Phrases such as, "I'm not available to help this time," or "I have other commitments," are powerful tools. These words, though brief, convey a clear message. They reinforce our boundaries and establish that our time and energy are valuable. Importantly, they allow us to step back without closing the door entirely, maintaining a cordial relationship without becoming entangled in a pattern of constant giving. We can be kind without being endlessly accommodating. Our friend Mary had always believed in being a good neighbor. A retired nurse with a warm smile, she took pride in creating a sense of community. Her door was always open for a chat, and she was the first to organize block parties or check on someone who hadn't been seen in a while. She loved her neighborhood and her neighbors loved her back. Well, most of them did. When a new family moved in next door, Mary was the first to welcome them. The mother, Laura, seemed especially grateful. With 2 small children and a busy schedule, she often leaned on Mary for support. At first, it was little things. Could Mary watch the kids for an hour? Could she grab a package from the porch? Mary was happy to help. She remembered how tough it had been raising her own children and believed in paying it forward. But as weeks turned into months, the requests grew. Laura would drop by unexpectedly, asking if Mary could watch the kids for just a bit while she ran errands. That bit often stretched into hours. Then came the groceries. "I'm so swamped today, Mary. Would you mind picking up a few things for us?" Each time Mary said yes, wanting to be supportive. But she started to notice a pattern. Laura rarely expressed gratitude and the favors never went both ways. When Mary once mentioned needing a hand with her garden, Laura had laughed it off, saying she wasn't good with plants. One evening, after a particularly long day of babysitting, Mary sat down with a cup of tea and felt a wave of exhaustion. Her own plans had been put on hold, and she realized she was dreading Laura's next knock. The joy of helping had turned into a burden. It struck her, this wasn't about being neighborly anymore. It was a one-way street, and her kindness was being taken for granted. The next morning, when Laura showed up at the door, children in tow, Mary took a deep breath. "I can't help today," she said gently but firmly. "I have some things I need to take care of." Laura looked surprised, maybe even a little annoyed, but Mary stood her ground. She didn't offer explanations or apologies. Over the next few weeks, Mary noticed a change. Laura's visits became less frequent. She still waved from across the street, but the constant favors stopped. Meanwhile, Mary found herself reconnecting with other neighbors, people who respected her time and who offered their own support in return. She joined a local book club and started enjoying her afternoons again. Through her experience with Laura, Mary learned a valuable lesson. Kindness doesn't mean sacrificing boundaries. True community is built on mutual respect and shared effort, not endless one-sided giving. By standing up for herself, she protected her well-being and made space for the genuine connections that truly enriched her life. True community thrives on reciprocity and mutual respect. Healthy neighborly relationships are balanced, where both parties contribute and benefit, fostering trust and genuine camaraderie. In contrast, interactions with self-serving neighbors often feel transactional and draining. Recognizing this difference helps us allocate our energy wisely, prioritizing connections that uplift rather than deplete us. We must remind ourselves that it's not our responsibility to fix or fulfill someone else's endless needs, especially when the relationship lacks mutual respect. It may feel uncomfortable at first to decline a request or enforce a boundary, especially if we're used to being the helpful one. Yet, practicing assertiveness strengthens our emotional resilience and reinforces our self-worth. Each time we stand firm, we reclaim a piece of our autonomy. We remind ourselves that self-care is not selfish. It is essential for sustaining meaningful relationships. By protecting our energy, we are better equipped to show up fully for the people and situations that truly matter. Number 3. The disruptive neighbor. Some neighbors bring unexpected chaos into our peaceful worlds. They might throw raucous late-night parties or blast music that shakes the walls. Sometimes they let their property fall into disrepair, turning it into an eyesore. Their lifestyle, whether intentional or not, disrupts the calm we cherish and work so hard to maintain. These disruptions aren't just minor inconveniences. They're ripples that disturb the entire neighborhood's harmony. The impact of such disturbances stretches far beyond simple annoyance. Constant noise infiltrates our minds, draining energy and fraying nerves. Broken sleep patterns from loud music or late-night revelry leave us exhausted. Our homes, meant to be sanctuaries, can feel invaded by stress and anxiety. An unsettling environment erodes not just tranquility but also the fundamental sense of safety we deserve within our own walls. Addressing these issues requires a thoughtful approach. Diplomacy works best when combined with calm determination. Starting a respectful conversation about the shared environment can open doors to understanding. Focus on solutions, not accusations. Highlighting how their actions impact the community often leads to better cooperation. If that approach doesn't yield results, involving a neighborhood association or property manager might provide the necessary support. A neutral third party can help mediate, ensuring concerns are taken seriously and everyone's rights are respected. Practical steps can also make a difference. Simple changes like soundproofing windows or creating a peaceful retreat inside can help minimize the effects of outside chaos. These adjustments, though small, restore a sense of control and calm. They turn our homes back into sanctuaries, shielding us from disturbances we can't directly change. Living in harmony with neighbors demands a delicate balance. Positive relationships can enrich our lives, fostering connection and support. Yet, setting clear boundaries is equally important. Protecting our peace doesn't mean shutting others out. Instead, it's about engaging thoughtfully and ensuring mutual respect. Investing energy wisely means knowing when to reach out and when to step back. Recognizing and addressing challenging neighbors is part of creating a balanced environment. The disruptive reveler who shatters the silence, the intrusive gossip who oversteps boundaries, or the self-centered neighbor who drains energy, all can be managed. Tackling these situations thoughtfully clears space for calm, independence, and genuine well-being. Navigating encounters with a disruptive neighbor while maintaining politeness, without becoming too friendly, requires balance and subtlety. Here are some practical tips to help you handle these interactions gracefully. 1. Stay busy. Project an image of having things to do. Carry a book, wear headphones, or mention upcoming plans. This subtly signals that you're occupied, leaving less room for prolonged interactions. 2. Be consistently calm and polite. Even if their behavior frustrates you, avoid showing irritation. Calm responses and steady politeness set a tone of respectful distance. They'll be less likely to engage in disruptive behavior if they don't get a reaction. 3. Keep conversations public and brief. Avoid inviting them into personal spaces or engaging in private discussions. If conversations happen, keep them in shared spaces like the sidewalk or lobby, and exit gracefully after a few minutes. 4. Offer non-committal responses. Avoid agreeing to anything beyond basic courtesy. If they invite you to events or gatherings, decline with a polite but vague reason. Thanks for thinking of me, but I've got other commitments. I appreciate it, but I keep my schedule pretty full. 5. Focus on community context. When addressing issues, frame them in terms of the whole neighborhood's well-being, not personal complaints. This maintains politeness and avoids the perception of personal conflict. I think we all want a peaceful environment, so I hope we can keep things quiet in the evenings. As the timeless saying goes, good fences make good neighbors. Our homes are more than structures, they're sanctuaries of warmth, security, and peace. By fostering respect and maintaining clear boundaries, we create spaces that nourish our well-being. In the end, it's about more than coexistence. It's about thriving in a community where everyone's tranquility is valued and protected. Part 2. 3 types of relatives to keep your distance from. Family is often where we find our deepest connections, shaping our identity and giving us a sense of belonging. However, not all family relationships are nurturing. Some can drain our energy, create unnecessary stress, or even undermine our sense of peace. Despite the history we share with certain relatives, their presence can sometimes become a source of tension rather than support. As we grow and mature, it becomes increasingly important to reflect on the dynamics that shape our family life. We must ask ourselves which relationships nourish us and which might be holding us back. Creating a healthy, balanced environment requires knowing when to set boundaries and when to step back, not out of anger, but out of a need to preserve our well-being. Here we'll explore 3 types of relatives who may need some distance. By understanding these dynamics, we can approach these relationships with both clarity and compassion, protecting our mental and emotional health while maintaining self-respect. Number 1. The borrower who doesn't repay. Financial dealings within families are often delicate, blending the bonds of trust with the practicalities of money. However, certain relatives exploit this trust, borrowing funds without genuine intent to repay or offering even the slightest acknowledgement of your generosity. They lean heavily on familial ties, assuming leniency or using it as a shield against accountability. This dynamic places strain on the relationship, as the goodwill extended becomes a source of frustration when met with disregard. The fallout from such situations extends beyond the financial. When money is lent but not returned, it damages trust and fosters feelings of betrayal. Relationships that once felt unshakable may falter under the weight of excuses and indifference. The emotional impact can linger, leaving one questioning not just the debt but the sincerity of the familial bond that once seemed unassailable. For those relying on savings, particularly during retirement, unpaid loans can disrupt plans and create financial vulnerabilities. The stress of navigating these unfulfilled obligations compounds the practical challenges, introducing a layer of psychological strain. What begins as a gesture of support can spiral into doubt, mistrust, and financial discomfort, eroding peace of mind. Establishing financial boundaries within families is both prudent and protective, though it may initially feel awkward. Recognizing patterns in a relative's behavior, such as a history of unfulfilled promises, can guide decisions about lending. It's wise to treat such exchanges with the clarity of a formal agreement, outlining expectations and terms to ensure mutual understanding. Let us share a story about our cousin Laura, whose infectious energy and optimism were her trademarks. Laura was the kind of person who could light up a room with her laughter and make you believe in her dreams with just a few words. She had always been a bit of a free spirit, chasing one big idea after another. Whether it was a small business, a creative project, or an overseas adventure, Laura lived life with an unstoppable determination. One day she approached us with a heartfelt request. She needed money, just enough to get her through a rough patch, and she was confident she'd pay it back soon. Laura's explanation tugged at our hearts. She had fallen behind on rent after her art studio faced unexpected expenses. Her voice cracked as she promised this was only temporary, insisting she'd learned her lesson and would repay us within a few months. It wasn't the first time Laura had asked for financial help, but her sincerity was hard to ignore. We had always seen her as someone who simply needed a bit more time to find her footing. Once again, we pooled together some savings and handed her the money, trusting her words. At first, things seemed promising. Laura kept in touch, updating us on her progress. She shared pictures of her artwork and even hinted at a big sale coming soon. Her gratitude was overwhelming, and it felt good to support her during a tough time. But as weeks turned into months, the updates became less frequent. When we tried to check in, her responses were vague and hurried. Eventually, Laura stopped answering altogether. The turning point came when we saw her on social media, posting about a weekend getaway with friends. She looked happy and carefree, but it stung to see her spending on leisure while our loan remained unpaid. It wasn't about the money, it was about feeling ignored and unappreciated. We began to realize that Laura's charm and optimism had a way of overshadowing her responsibility. She always seemed so convincing, yet follow-through was never her strength. For some of us, this experience led to sleepless nights. The money wasn't a fortune, but it was meaningful. A portion of a college fund, an emergency stash, or a bit of savings meant for personal goals. It wasn't just the financial loss that hurt, it was the erosion of trust. Conversations about Laura began to shift from admiration for her creativity to frustration over her carelessness. Her avoidance only deepened the divide. Over time, we decided to take a different approach. We realized we needed to protect ourselves without cutting her off entirely. The next time Laura asked for help, we set clear boundaries. No more loans, we told her, but we were willing to support her in other ways. We helped her connect with local galleries, brainstormed ideas for her business, and even shared advice on managing finances. While she didn't always take our suggestions, it felt good to offer help that didn't leave us feeling vulnerable. The shift wasn't easy for Laura. At first, she seemed hurt by our refusal to lend her more money. But over time, the dynamic began to change. With financial expectations off the table, our conversations became more genuine. We started focusing on her progress and her life without the shadow of debt looming over us. Though Laura never repaid the full amount, we eventually found peace. The experience taught us that supporting family doesn't always mean saying yes. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do is to set limits and encourage independence. By protecting our finances and setting healthy boundaries, We not only preserved our resources but also salvaged the relationship. Laura remains a part of our lives, and while the trust we once had may not be fully restored, the love we share as family has endured. In cases where financial assistance feels risky, offering non-monetary support is an alternative worth considering. Practical help, like budgeting advice or connecting someone to useful resources, demonstrates care without exposing yourself to potential financial loss. This approach supports their needs while safeguarding your own well-being. Preserving your financial health is not a selfish act. It's an affirmation of self-respect. Setting boundaries protects you and conveys that generosity has its limits. Declining to lend money doesn't diminish your love or care. It reflects your commitment to maintaining a balanced and respectful relationship. Number 2. The self-absorbed relative. Some relatives seem to see family as a stage for their own stories, prioritizing their desires, grievances, or achievements above all else. They often treat relationships as one-way streets, drawing heavily on the energy, attention, and support of others without offering the same in return. Their focus is inward, and their interactions rarely extend beyond their own immediate needs or interests. Conversations with these individuals tend to follow predictable patterns. They dominate discussions with tales of their lives, complaints about their challenges, or boasts about their successes. Little room is left for others to share, connect, or feel heard. For those who value genuine, balanced connections, these interactions can feel frustrating, even alienating, as the lack of reciprocity becomes glaringly evident. Over time, such dynamics can take a heavy toll on emotional well-being. Constantly giving without receiving can feel exhausting and unsustainable. It's disheartening to realize that someone you care for sees the relationship as a resource rather than a bond of mutual respect. The resulting imbalance often leaves one drained, both emotionally and mentally, as efforts to engage meaningfully seem to go unnoticed or unacknowledged. To navigate these relationships effectively, self-respect must take precedence. Boundaries become essential to preserve energy and protect mental health. Relationships should never demand endless sacrifice without offering comfort, appreciation, or care in return. By recognizing the limits of what can be given, it becomes possible to engage with a greater sense of control and emotional balance. Sometimes, addressing the behavior directly can lead to change. A calm, honest conversation about the impact of their actions might encourage self-reflection and growth. Framing the discussion in terms of mutual respect can open doors to a healthier, more fulfilling dynamic. Yet, it's equally important to acknowledge that not everyone is willing, or capable, of changing their ways, no matter how gently the truth is shared. When improvement feels out of reach, reducing contact may be the best option. This isn't an act of rejection or hostility. It's a conscious choice to focus on relationships that uplift rather than drain. Protecting one's emotional space is an act of self-preservation, ensuring there is room for connections that bring joy, value, and a sense of belonging. Family ties are significant, but they should never come at the cost of personal peace or dignity. Relationships thrive on balance, respect, and shared effort. By setting boundaries and prioritizing meaningful connections, it becomes possible to build a circle of support that genuinely nurtures and celebrates each person involved. Number 3. The lazy dependent relative. Some family members find themselves in situations of dependency, relying heavily on others without seeking to improve their circumstances. This dynamic often stems from a lack of motivation or an unwillingness to take responsibility for their lives. While family ties naturally inspire compassion and support, unchecked dependency can create an unbalanced relationship, with one party bearing the weight of another's choices. Such situations can linger indefinitely, testing patience and resources. Supporting a dependent relative can significantly impact emotional and financial stability. When assistance becomes a recurring expectation rather than a temporary measure, it strains the energy and resources of those providing it. The constant demand for support without visible efforts toward change can lead to frustration and even resentment. Over time, this imbalance may disrupt plans for a peaceful retirement or hinder the pursuit of personal aspirations, leaving little room for tranquility. True compassion lies not in endless enabling but in fostering independence. By encouraging self-sufficiency, we empower others to take control of their lives. Clear boundaries are essential in this process, defining the extent and duration of any assistance offered. This approach shifts the focus from dependency to growth, nurturing a sense of responsibility and resilience. Helping someone stand on their own feet brings long-term benefits to both parties, cultivating mutual respect and preserving personal resources. Healthy boundaries are not only about protecting assets, they safeguard peace of mind. Establishing limits creates space for accountability, ensuring that support is a bridge, not a crutch. It's vital to communicate these boundaries with empathy, expressing a desire for the relative to thrive independently. When support is offered as a stepping stone, it encourages a proactive approach, fostering motivation and self-reliance while alleviating the burden of continuous aid. Sometimes, maintaining family harmony requires taking a step back. Distance can be an effective way to protect emotional well-being and create room for healthier dynamics. Not every relationship needs to occupy the same level of closeness. Choosing carefully who belongs in the most intimate parts of life ensures a circle filled with mutual respect, positivity, and warmth. This selectiveness fosters a stronger foundation for meaningful connections. Balancing compassion with self-preservation allows us to build sustainable relationships. Offering support in a way that inspires growth prevents burnout and ensures that generosity does not become an unending obligation. When we approach dependent relatives with both kindness and firmness, we create opportunities for transformation rather than perpetuating cycles of reliance. This balance is the key to maintaining both family bonds and personal contentment. In the end, fostering independence benefits everyone involved. It brings peace to those who give, empowering them to focus on their own goals, and it grants freedom to those who receive, encouraging them to embrace the potential of a self-directed life. With thoughtful boundaries and genuine encouragement, family relationships can thrive, built on mutual respect and shared progress. Your well-being is priceless. When we prioritize our needs, we set an example that encourages others to do the same. It reminds everyone of the value of meaningful relationships and how they shape a fulfilling, balanced life. By nurturing ourselves and those around us, we create space for connection, growth, and lasting happiness.